I'm going to jump next to CS. That's what is listed on this.
I'm Carol. Nice to meet everyone. I don't have a planting anything yet. I kind of just came here to learn what plant therapy is and what it could do for me. But I am attracted to like the aesthetic of like foliage and things like that. So I understand the value of it. And yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to flip it over to Veronica to introduce herself and start it off. But first, I want to let everybody know how we're setting up this today. The first 30 minutes is going to be dedicated to Veronica. And then the last 30 minutes is going to be dedicated to Jahmai. They'll both be sharing their stories and talking about some of the plants that they're growing. And in the end, Jahmai will be calling out the name of the person who won the raffle that we were holding. So we're very grateful for her to be given a kit out and just happy, like I said, to have everybody join. I'll let Nye introduce herself real quick. And let me say that, okay, Bean said, sorry, it's too loud where I am. Bean, and I want to be a partner. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Bean. Nye, could you just introduce yourself really quick, and then we're going to turn it over to Veronica to get started.
Hi, I'm Nye. I'm from the Bronx, New York. I don't know what else you guys were sharing, but I just started getting into plants really recently, so I'm just trying to get as much information and knowledge as I can. So nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you, Nye. Awesome. Thanks for joining us. All right, Veronica, you got it.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Veronica Moore, and I'm a Chicago native, but I am living in the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania right now. And Jahmai, I am also an introvert, but willing to discuss plants. So that's where all my energy is exuded today. But you find me any other day, and I'm super reserved, low-key, observing everything. But I'm just going to share a little bit about myself, kind of what got me here, and Black to Earth, we found each other on Instagram, and I kind of want to talk about that growth as well, and also my own personal pivot through the pandemic, right? Because I think that a lot of us have been able to see some growth in the love and care for plants through that, and that's absolutely amazing. But as I said, I'm from Chicago. My parents grew up, and my dad grew up in Chicago, but my mother is from the South. And so growing up, she always wanted a garden. But they were sharecroppers in Arkansas, and her mother would not allow for it because they would just come and take their crops, right? Like that's the pre-60s, like all of that. It was real. They were not paid for what it is that would be taken from them. And so it was something that my grandmother just did not want my mother to have to go through. So my mother got into the practice of gardening. She's a master gardener later in life. And I'll probably say around like my age now, like I'm 37, and it was around that time that I started to notice and see the things that she was doing. So growing up, my house, like my living room, low key, there was windows everywhere, jungle. It was like you could barely see out the window because she had plants like growing all over the place, vining all over the place. And that's when I finally knew. As I thought about it, I was like, she had pothos like growing all through the windows, and they were just like vining. And I wish that I still had some of those plants, but she went through a phase because my grandfather came into the house one day, and he was like, what's all these plants in here? Look like a jungle. And it hurt her feelings. So she stopped growing plants indoor. And I was like, oh my goodness, but it never stopped her love for growing food. So from a young age, from like 6, up and still now to this day, my mother has a garden at our home, and she grows things that we've been able to really benefit from growing up: tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squash, okra, you name it, natural composting. And she taught herself, right? So I always remember that I would go into the garden and I would help harvest. I loved fried green tomatoes. So if there was anything that I was coming into the garden to get, I was grabbing the tomatoes because I wanted some fried green tomatoes, or I wanted some peppers, and kind of love the experience of going to pick the food and seeing the harvest that my mother spent so much time growing and giving her heart to. So I experienced that with her for a couple of years. And then in my teenage years, I got too cool, right? I was too cute to continue to care for plants. And so I found myself not in a position or even interest in plants until a little bit later on. And so when I moved to Pennsylvania from Chicago after grad school, I would play with plants here and there. But as I was reflecting on it, I knew that I was not in a space to care for something else because I wasn't caring for myself. I was going through a lot of trauma of not loving myself, some real deep self-esteem issues that were like deeply rooted, y'all, like deeply rooted. And I did not notice that I wasn't in that space until I started to reflect on it recently. So I would have plants here and there. I have a jade tree over there that I got in 2013. So I will say that my love and care for plants started to redevelop around that time. And I would have a couple of plants here and there, but I would always make sure that I was taking care of this jade tree. Like, it was something special to me. It's 7 years old now. But I would let other things die, right? Like, I would just wouldn't care for them, would go up and down with my emotions and how I felt about myself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and other things would wither away and die. But that jade tree was so resilient. Like, I could go weeks without watering her, but she still was with me, right? She still thrived with me. She still loved on me, even when I didn't love on myself. And so, speed up a couple of years, I started to get more into plants outside and also caring for more plants in my house. But in 2018, in February, my sister unexpectedly died, and it shook my whole world. And I got back into that dark place of not being able to care for myself. So I knew that something needed to change. My marriage was failing. I was not like, the only thing that kept me alive, y'all, was caring for my daughter. Like, she was the only thing that got me getting up every day, right? Because I didn't have any other will, right? Like, my sister, my sibling, someone that I'm close to is no longer here. So it took me a year to go to therapy. So I waited a whole year. And I finally went to therapy in February of 2019, went to grief therapy specifically, and really tapped into some hard stuff, y'all, like just some residual things that I had not tapped into before. I'm always observant, though. And one of the things that I noticed that my therapist had a 4D model that she would use, but it was based upon a tree. And the tree logo that she had was a jade tree. And so I was like, ooh, okay. And then I walk into her office, she got plants everywhere. So I'm like, one day we started talking, I was like, oh, I like that plant. She's like, are you into plants? I'm like, yeah, I grew up around them, but nothing that I don't have a house full of plants or anything like this. You have more plants in here than I do in my home. I have like this one little jade tree. She showed me the logo with the jade tree, and we kind of walked through symbolically the natural approach that she would take with therapy. So it was talk therapy, but it was also a little bit of tapping, if you all are familiar with that. And I was like, yo, she was like, I know you think I'm crazy and I'm asking you to tap like all over your body. But it helped kind of help me neutralize the things that I was feeling. And I was able to be a little bit more aware. So as the spring of 2019 was coming around, I started to notice that I was more aware of the things that were growing around me, not realizing that also was symbolic about my own growth, right? That I was realizing growth when I saw it. So I went and got a couple of plants from the nursery, and the plants that I got were, they were string of pearls. It was, what else is over there? I'll have to go over there and look, but it was like 3 plants. My daughter went with me, and so she was into the plants, and I was like, oh, that's cute. And she's like, Mommy, let's get some flowers. And so we would get flowers, and I would slowly bring some things into the house. So we go from March of 19 to March of 20. That symbolizes for me 1 year in therapy. So I had gone one whole year fully with my therapist every other week, y'all. For a year straight, I would go every other week because I knew I already believed in therapy. So I'm not one of those individuals who are like, therapy don't work. It's absolutely vital and it's necessary. So it happened, I was going to therapy and ended our in-person sessions the week before the shutdown of COVID. I had already gone back to the nursery, got a few other plants, and started to kind of redecorate my house. And I probably had 20 at that time. Now I'm up to like 70. But no judgment, don't judge me, y'all. I'm building an indoor jungle. But what I recognized was pre-COVID, we had our last session. We had our virtual session in 2 weeks later, but I had been going to the nursery probably every week for two weeks, every week. And I would go to a couple of them and I just started to buy more and more plants. So we came to that last session that we had and it was virtual. And we had our breakup session. She was like, how are you feeling? You celebrated a year in therapy. And I felt great, right? And I was like, I feel like I've made a lot of progress. And I boohooed on the phone or on the Zoom because I was like, I feel like I don't need as many sessions anymore. And she was like, I would agree. So I was like, oh my God, are we breaking up? And she's like, I think that we don't need to see each other as often. How about we say it that way? So I was like, okay. And she said, how do you feel with everything that's happening? I said, I feel renewed and I feel restored. And she said, well, what have you been doing? What has your practice been? I said, well, I've been really caring for my plants. And she said, oh, you got some plants in your house? I was like, yeah, I got a couple of plants. She said, well, how long have you had them? I said, for about 2.5 weeks, like the really big haul. And she said, oh, that's been about the same amount of time that we haven't been in therapy sessions together. And so it seems as though your plants have replaced the therapy that we've been going through for the past year. And I can tell the difference in you. I can tell the way that you talk about how you are caring for plants. And y'all, when I realized that, I broke down because I was like, here I was thinking that because I wasn't meeting with my therapist every other week anymore, that it was over. And that wasn't the case because now I get up every day. I talk to my plants. I, go through a practice of meditating and caring for them. But now I'm in a space right now where I'm able to actually nurture and care for something else in addition to myself. And that's a journey for me because I was not always that way. And I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional, but being able to see the growth that you have and people don't realize the joy that plants bring to people and the community that plant lovers bring, and just the practice of nurturing and seeing the fruit of your labor is just so rewarding. So like I said, I have like 70 something plants throughout my house. My favorites are pothos and Pilea peperomioides. My Pilea is called Poppin' Pilea. She's the only plant that I've named because she just started popping babies all over the place. So I'm like, that's Poppin' Pilea. That's the only plant that I named. I have different varieties. I have alocasia plants. I also love peperomia varieties. I have raindrop. I have variegated. I have so many other things. And I should have did this on my phone so I can show you guys my collection over here, but I'm more than happy to do that after my sis goes and shares her journey. But I also grow things outside. So I have my garden outdoors and I'm growing squash and peppers, tomatoes. I have Tuscan kale, I have traditional kale. I'm going to be planting some collard greens and Japanese mustards tomorrow. And what else do I have? Cucumbers, basil. I do a lot of companion gardening as well, but I'm also learning, and I love the art of being able to learn about different practices and ways to nurture and care for your plants and the healing properties. I always joke with people, me and my husband are like low-key hippies. We believe in medicinal use of plants and herbs to heal and just be a part of our everyday practice in life. And so that's about me. I mean, if anybody has questions, I'm more than happy to entertain them, but that is how my plant journey has come to be. And it's actually why I started my Instagram page, because I wanted a space to be able to creatively share my journey, but also to just be in the practice of allowing for that therapeutic nature and reality to be shared with people, because it is real. And then, you know, I didn't see a whole lot of us in the space. And so I wanted to be able to provide some community with that as well, and let folks know that we're here and gas other folks up too. So I love to see the support. And I can't wait to hear more about what you're doing, Jahmai, and then how we can best support the efforts of Black to Earth too. So thanks, y'all.
Thank you for sharing that, Veronica. I'm an empath, and so I was like tearing up. I was like, wait, I'm not gonna cry right now. But no, I really thank you for sharing that. And you know, your story is beautiful, and what you've created is beautiful. So that's amazing. Thank you again. And if you guys have questions for Veronica, we have like 3 more minutes before we switch it over to Jahmai. So please ask any questions you have now. Okay, well, I'll switch it over to Jahmai. You have some beautiful plants. Veronica, we do want to see your plants in the end after the raffle and everything, so please show us your plants. But yeah, Jahmai, on you.
All right, so hello everyone. My name's Jahmai, and I've been gardening for about 2 years now, mainly herbs and vegetables. I have done the bulk of my gardening indoors. I've also briefly done some patio gardening, so I'm trying my hand out with some patio gardening now. I would say in total currently, I have about, between indoors and outdoors, probably about 70 different plant varieties. And so I recently expanded to having a focus just on herbs and vegetables to more indoor plants. And so, you know, getting my fiddle leaf fig and, you know, different kinds of pothos varieties and things like that as well. But how I got into gardening is actually a really, I guess it's a lot of different things. And so the first thing is I was born and raised in Nassau, the Bahamas. And so the Caribbean is a very lush, green, tropical place. And so I think, but it's interesting how when you are away from something, you realize how much you took it for granted, right? And so it wasn't until I came to the US when I was 17 that I realized, like, wow, it's fall and like there's nothing green around. Everything looks dead. And then winter came and I was like, whoa, like what is even happening? And so I think it's hard being away from home, right? It's hard being away from the place that you know and love. And it's even harder being away from loved ones. And so for me, I come from a long line of farmers as well as fishermen. And so I have always had this natural affinity for nature, the land, the water, things of that nature. They have always brought me a lot of calm. And so for me, I went through a lot of homesickness. I think in my undergraduate and graduate years, I was dealing with depression and probably didn't even realize it, right? But it was thankfully in graduate school that I was pursuing a degree that was counseling based, as well as that was the first time that I entered into therapy. And so I really love what Veronica was talking about. And I thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself, because so much of it resonated with me, right? And it's this whole idea of therapy is great, but it's also really important to find a way that helps know what calms you and find your happy place, right? And so for me, having plants in my space was also very calming, but it also for me was bigger than that, in that it helped me bring pieces of home into my home away from that space, right? And so I also really love this whole idea of gardening and having plants, because for me, it's this idea of having an investment in in nature, right? And so you're responsible for another living thing. And it may not necessarily be as tedious as, let's say, like a pet or a child, right? But in a lot of ways, depending on how picky some of your plants are, it is an everyday thing. You got to be checking in on them and just being aware of what's going on. And so for me, it was really about an investment in nature. And so I was taking the time out to get these plants, research what they need, do whatever it is I needed to do, incorporate that into my weekly or even my daily routine. And then in a lot of ways, as I took care of these plants, they're taking care of me. And so that's why I really enjoy having herbs, especially, or even growing vegetables, because what you put into gardening is really what you get out, right? And for some plants, it's more so that way than others, because like I said, some can be very high maintenance or low maintenance. But again, it's really that investment with nature. And I would say more specifically when COVID hit and the impacts came and I was working from home and I found that I had a lot more time at home, I was really able to invest in myself and invest in my plants. And again, there isn't, unfortunately, a lot of representation, I think, as it relates to Black folks, as it relates to gardening, farming, and agriculture. And this really breaks my heart, because when I think about who we are as a people, nature is inherent to who we are. There is no us without a connection to the land, right? And I understand why there's sometimes a lot of trauma that's associated with that relationship or that connection. But I don't want for it to be that way. You know, I think there's a lot of healing that we can find in this lifestyle, right? Outside just being self-sufficient and growing your own, but also really fostering that connection. And so I really started posting a lot of plant-based content, I would say maybe in late March. And initially it was really just for myself to document my journey, because last year when I had first moved to the Midwest, I bought all these plants. And I'm so glad that Veronica talked about this, because all those plants ended up dying, except my one jade plant, which is really interesting when you mentioned the jade plant, Veronica. And so I was like, literally the oldest plant in my collection is a jade plant too. And so out of the 13 or 14 plants that I had bought, my jade plant is the one plant that's been around since last year. And it's coming up on its first birthday, I guess. At least being with me, or anniversary in August. And so that was just so oddly ironic that it worked out that way. But again, I wasn't in a position, just due to the new adjustment, the new job, being in a new space that's somewhat rural and also the widest space that I've ever been in. And so I just was not in a space to be caring for anything else other than my plants. But I started posting the content this March, and I noticed that people were really taking an interest in it. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to take my platform and utilize it as a means to do two things. And the first is to make gardening more accessible through education and building community. And I think this right now, like this very Zoom, this very collaboration, is a testament to how amazing it is, the community that we've built as Black people, as Black gardeners, as Black agriculturists, as Black farmers, to really be able to build a community within ourselves to educate and uplift others who are thinking about or considering it, right? And so the other thing is to help Black people reestablish, repair, or strengthen their connection to nature through the art of gardening or having plants. And so that's really what my content has been about. And so whenever opportunities like this arise for me to educate or talk about my experience, I am always willing to do so, because gardening is not just something that is, I think when you take a look at it, just to be frank, the bulk of the gardeners that you see are white, right? And so I think sometimes a lot of people may feel like, well, this isn't really our thing. And it's like, no, this has always been your thing. And so really trying to get folks to realize and understand that. But also recognizing that it's not as simple for Black folks to just get into this, especially if it's not something that they have been used to, right? And so really just helping to debunk some of these things that, like, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be rocket science. Like, where there's a will to garden, there's a way. And so that's why I do my giveaways, because it's like, even if you kill it, it's fine. You can try again, right? And so that's why I've been sending those giveaways to people, because it's like, I just want for you to get growing. You know what I mean? I just want for you to dive in and try it. And so that's a little bit about myself and why I do what I do. And it's something that I've really come to love. And so I've only been doing this since about March now, coming up on my 3rd month. And I love it. It has really helped me in ways that I couldn't even imagine. And it's also allowed me to help people. And so I'm very much so a giver. And so this has really given me a platform to just give and pour into people. And people have consistently poured into me. And so I'm very thankful for that. And I'm very thankful for this collab and just to be in this space with you all. I don't take that for granted. And so moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I grow a lot of different herbs, but I'm going to focus on 7 main herbs that I grow. And the bulk of these, I started from seed, which is typically not a route that a lot of people take, and definitely not one that I would recommend for certain herbs. And so I have about 7 herbs that I'm going to talk about. And the first 5, I would say, are relatively low maintenance and not so difficult to grow from seed, but I'll talk a little bit about each of those specifically. And so I have a couple of different sage varieties, but today I have 3 present. And so this here is garden or bear garden sage, and this is a very common sage variety. So if you see starts at like a nursery or any other store, this is typically a sage variety that you'll find. This is golden sage, and this is a really cool variety that I had never really seen before, but I purchased this start from a local nursery. And it's one of those varieties that I would say is a lot more difficult to come by, or the seeds may get a little pricey. So that was why I chose to just buy it from start instead. And then this is pineapple sage. And I really love pineapple sage because it smells just like pineapples when you rub the leaves. Most sage varieties tend to have that very distinct earthy smell, but the pineapple sage is a lot more pleasant. I really love the distinct earthy smell because it's so nostalgic for me, because at home, it's dry, it's warm, and so that's what a lot of sage plants really like and thrive in. And so I have all the sage plants because I love the smell. It's just really nostalgic. However, I also have tricolor sage as well as purple sage that I had purchased from start from the same local nursery that I had bought this one from. And so one thing that's important to note about a lot of herbs, specifically when ingested, is almost all of them have really great properties for aiding digestive ailments or upsets. And so the first one that I want to talk a little bit about, before we talk about that though, is this idea that sage is in a lot of ways cleansing, right? And so sage can be used to cleanse a space when the leaves are dry. It can also be used to cleanse a person as well. And so depending on what sort of belief system that you adhere to, sage has a lot of different multi-purpose uses, specifically for personal healing or even space healing. And so if you're looking to cleanse the energy within a space, I would definitely recommend sage. If you're looking to cleanse yourself, I would definitely recommend sage. Another thing that sage is really great for is easing skin ailments or irritations. So sage has a lot of antifungal as well as antibacterial properties. So let's say you have a rash, some sort of irritation, an insect bite, mosquito bites, things like that. I would definitely recommend taking a sage bath. We have a lot of mosquitoes where I'm from, so I could definitely remember times where like I would just have welts all over me from just being outside without having some sort of insect repellent on, and I would be on fire because it's just itching so badly. But after a good old sage bath from like my grandmother or something like that, I will feel a lot better, right? And so again, a lot of healing properties and a lot of great things to benefit your skin that can be found in sage. Another thing is that a lot of people may not necessarily know about is if you're someone who sweats excessively or you're experiencing excessive salivation, some sort of sage-based tea or some sort of sage taken either topically in a specific area can also assist with this. Another thing that isn't necessarily as common as it relates to sage is its treatment as it relates to depression and memory loss. And there's even been some recent studies about sage being ingested or taken in some form that helps ease some of the symptoms of Alzheimer's. And so again, there's a lot of healing properties that these herbs have, but a lot of people don't necessarily take the time out to do the research, or just simply unaware of the fact that, hey, there's a lot of things that these herbs can do for us. Another herb that I have is mint. So I have sweet mint, I have chocolate mint, I have mojito mint, I also have pineapple mint. And again, I will caution, if you're trying to grow mint from seed, it's notoriously difficult. I've tried about 2 or 3 times, and for whatever reason, it just didn't catch as well. And so while it's easy to maintain from start, or once you already have an established plant, growing from seed can get a little bit more tricky. And so just a word of caution. Again, mint is great for an upset stomach. Peppermint tea, spearmint tea is really something that can assist with any sort of pain or upset that you're experiencing, or any kind of digestive issue for that matter. And so I would always recommend having any kind of mint plant, being able to steep that in some warm water and drink that. It's relaxing, but it also really helps with any digestive upsets that you can have. It's also really great for calming stress and or anxiety. And so if you're feeling a little anxious, feeling a little stressed, or maybe even experiencing some insomnia, mint is definitely something that can help remedy that. Another thing is that mint also is great for skin because it is antibacterial, and it also contains salicylic acid. And so this is a natural source to help you remedy things like acne. Also, if you're someone who has oily skin, mint contains a lot of vitamin A. And so if applied topically or ingested, or whatever method it is that you choose to utilize, it's something that you can use to help ease acne or even the excess buildup of oil on your skin. And then another herb that I have is basil. And so I have a few different basil varieties. I have sweet basil, mammoth basil, purple basil, cinnamon basil, holy basil. And I really love basil because of the aroma. And I think traditionally when we think about basil, it's specifically in this realm of culinary, right? And it is great for dishes, don't get me wrong. However, there's also a lot of cool uses for basil outside of just putting them in food dishes. I would say I really love basil varieties the most because while all of them have like that similar licorice kind of aroma, or like that pungent smell, each variety has something different. So like my holy basil plant, I can't even figure out exactly what that aroma is, but each of them just smell really great and they have different uses. So whatever it is that you're looking for, there's most likely a basil variety for you. Be that for cooking in dishes or even utilizing it for different things. And so again, any kind of digestive issue that you're experiencing, basil is essentially something that can help. It also has been known to help with fluid retention, as well as kidney ailments. So ailments that are associated with the kidneys sometimes can lead to excess fluid or something of that nature. And so that's something that basil is something that can assist with that. Worm infections in the gut, basil can also help ease some of those symptoms or also help eliminate or eradicate the presence of those parasites. Again, skin. So specifically for warts or insects and snake bites, basil oil, either applied topically via paste or dilution, can really help to relieve some of those symptoms associated with those things. Another cool fact, so for mothers-to-be as well as mothers who are currently breastfeeding, this basil helps support the flow of breast milk. And it also helps with blood circulation, which is especially important during that process. And so again, the more you know. And also holy basil especially is one of those herbs that, depending on what kind of belief system you come from, has a lot of great spiritual properties and has really been known to help and assist with anxiety, stress, as well as things like insomnia. Lemon balm. So lemon balm is one of the herbs that I feel like is very much so slept on. And for a lot of folks, specifically up here or the Midwest, the region that I'm in, lemon balm oftentimes occurs naturally in a yard and you may not necessarily even know it, just because it's very low maintenance in that it doesn't have that many requirements as it relates to moisture or even sunlight. And so this is a very resilient herb and resilient plant. So I know it's really time to pay attention to my plants when my lemon balm is looking a little struggly. So again, another great low maintenance herb. It has a really nice lemony aroma. And so if you rub on the leaves or if you break them, you'll be able to smell that lemon. It really just smells like lemon essential oil or like the rind of a lemon. And I really love lemons. And so I have 2 lemon balm plants, but also the uses of lemon balm is really great too. And so if you're having insomnia, if you're anxious, if you're having trouble sleeping, pick off a couple fresh or dry lemon balm leaves, steep in some water, drink as you would tea, and I'm telling you, very calming, very soothing, great night's sleep. Best you probably had in a while. And so I would definitely recommend that. Another thing that I've been keeping my eye on is this research with lemon balm as it relates to hormone regulation. And so folks who are experiencing thyroid issues, specifically hyperthyroidism, incorporating lemon balm into your diet regularly via tea or whatever it is that you wish to do to consume that lemon balm has also been proven to help ease some of those symptoms or help to regulate certain things. Another thing is lemongrass. So where I'm from, we call this fever grass, and mainly because I know this as a herb that's used to help relieve the symptoms of fevers as well as elevated body temperature. And so it's not uncommon to hear about people where I'm from. If you find that someone has fever, bathing them in lemongrass or fever grass, or giving them lemon or fever grass tea. And so that's another cool thing. Also helps with digestive issues as well as high blood pressure or hypertension as well. So fever grass or lemongrass tea is something that's great. Yes, and this is also really something great to grow in your garden, specifically outdoors or have near you, because this is a great mosquito repellent. And so obviously this is a smaller plant, so I would say the mosquito repellent properties of this, if I was to go outside, probably not the best, but these grow or they catch very quickly. And so if I were to put this, when I repotted this into a larger pot, it grew, I would say, within like days. And so I probably will be repotting this soon just to give it some room to really start to expand. And it looks like some of the roots are starting to outgrow from under this pot any which way. So I need to do that sooner rather than later. Another thing for herb that I want to talk about is rosemary. And I want to note that we are on the 6th herb. So we're starting to transition into some more of those higher maintenance or not as easy to grow from seed compared to the other herbs that I talked about. And so this rosemary plant is starting to come along and finally starting to look like an actual mature rosemary. However, it literally just started doing that maybe a few weeks ago. And so I first planted these rosemary seeds in April, and then I repotted them in early May, and they're really starting to catch now. And so rosemary can be a little bit picky when growing from seed, and it's very slow growing. So if you do not have the patience, I would not recommend growing the rosemary from seed. But again, rosemary is great for digestive issues, things like stomach upsets, nausea, things of that nature. And it's also really great for improving circulation. And so one of the things that I thought has been really cool, and I've been doing a lot of research on, is this idea of rosemary oil to help reverse some of the effects of alopecia. So there's a lot of different varieties of alopecia as we know it, a lot of different causes. However, I do know that it's something that tends to impact the Black community at a disproportionate rate compared to other folks. And so the way that rosemary oil is used to help alleviate some of the symptoms of different kinds of alopecia is that because it improves circulation, rubbing rosemary oil into the scalp on a regular basis or diluting it with a carrier oil on a regular basis helps stimulate some of those hair follicles as well as blood circulation in the scalp to help improve hair growth in areas where they may have necessarily been, I guess, like balding spots or substantial slowing of the hair growth process. And so again, rosemary oil is something that can be very beneficial for folks. It's also really great for stress or anxiety relief. And so I really love the aroma of citrus peel. So every week I get a citrus boil or steep going. And if I want to add a little bit of razzle dazzle that particular week, or if I'm feeling a little stressed or anxious, I'll add a few drops of that rosemary essential oil. And what it does, it essentially acts like a diffuser. And so that's something that's been really great. But again, rosemary is very slow growing from seed, so I would definitely recommend growing from start if you don't have the patience or even the time to pay close attention to it, because these are very picky plants, especially when growing from seeds. And so I'm just very excited that these are coming along pretty well and actually starting to smell and look like an actual rosemary plant. Lastly is lavender. So again, another one of those herbs that is a lot more difficult to grow from seed. And so these I planted around the same time as the rosemary. And they're looking a little bit struggly, but you know, they're coming along well. So we've been about 2 or so months in with the lavender, and it's grown to that point. However, another one of those herbs that's relatively easy to maintain in the home, or that will thrive in a home where it's getting a lot of sun as well as warmth. And I think typically when we think about lavender, we think about it as something used to relax, right? I think in essential oils and things of that nature. And again, it does assist with anxiety, stress, as well as insomnia. And so all the things that I talked about just now are just a few of all of the healing properties herbs, because I know where these herbs are coming from. And so especially if you're someone who doesn't like the idea of chemical processing or some sort of GMO involvement, or you're really looking to just do things the organic way, I would always recommend growing things from seed, or getting it from another gardener whose gardening practices you're familiar with. So you have an idea of what exactly it is that they're using. So that way, if you get something and you're deciding to use herbs as some sort of to see if you have any allergies. And so I love lavender, but lavender does not love me back because I'm allergic to it. And so again, definitely just be careful, specifically when working with essential oils. Be sure to dilute it in a carrier oil or not use too much of it, because sometimes they can be very potent and sometimes bring about irritations that you may have not necessarily had it been in a lesser concentration. And so those are my disclaimers and just some things that I wanted to talk a little bit about as I wrap up the discussion about herbs. And so now I'm going to announce the giveaway winner. And so the giveaway winner is going to be receiving 3 sets of easy to grow herb seeds. And I'll be in contact with you to determine which kind of seeds it is that you would like. I'll also be providing seedling mix and seedling pots. And so essentially all you need to do is sow your seeds, water them, and watch them grow. And so the person who I had selected based on a random generator from the folks who had signed up for the raffle was Rashida. And so I will be in contact with Rashida via email. I'm not sure if Rashida is present currently, but I will be in contact with them about details or next steps to getting that done. And so that's all I have. So I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Nicola.
Thank you for sharing that. I loved all the information. And girl, I give you hats off for like starting lavender from like the seed, because I started with like, I was just like, what is wrong with this damn plant? It's just not trying to grow.
I'm even worried about this one. So we'll see what happens. Don't give me my accolades yet. Like, let me check on me in August and we'll see what's really going on.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. But I love the other plants that you mentioned. Oh, I think okay. I was echoing. Yeah. But I love the other plants that you mentioned. I had never heard of pineapple sage, so now I have to find it. That's just phenomenal. But yeah, thank you for all those resources and for giving out that plant kit. That is amazing. So we're excited about that. I'm gonna try to reach out to Rashida as well whenever you get in contact with her, because we want to track her plant journey with growing that. So yeah, that's awesome, Jahmai. Thank you. And yeah, we'll turn it back over to Veronica so we can see her plants.
Okay, y'all. It's up here. Okay, so this is my workspace. So I'm going to show y'all the workspace, a little bit of downstairs, and then I'm going to show y'all my garden as well outside. So this is my workspace. This is a raindrop peperomia. I have the prayer plant here, umbrella. I just spray some neem. I go crazy with neem, y'all, because I'm like, I do not have time for bugs. Alocasia poly here. Y'all, this is the jade tree. Let me try to, you see she's like trailing all the way down here, but I'm afraid that if I pick her up, she gonna fall over. But this is the jade tree and it trails down all the way to here. I actually have to cut it. This is angel wing begonia. I actually have a carnivorous plant. So these help with the bugs that's in here. This is sundew, the ones that are like sticky with the bugs on it. And then these are just pictures. I have a Hoya carry that was given to me actually on the vine. String of pearls. Here's Poppin', y'all. There go Poppin' Palia. That is her. I have a Bonnie plant here, but this is my workspace. And I like to be able to have it in my workspace because it kind of centers me as I need breaks and things like that. So I'm gonna run downstairs real quick. Y'all bear with me. And I can show you all what's downstairs in the living room area. So this is, my husband got this planter made for me out of a pallet. So that's that, and I have a lot of philodendrons here, and there's the arrowhead, neon pothos, enjoy pothos. There's the other peperomia varieties. I have some ferns down here, peperomia fern, kind of like variety. This monstera is struggling a little bit, but this is my sensation. Peace lily, Alocasia regal shield is here. Raven ZZ is here. I have a philodendron micans that's here. I have it actually propagating in water, but I actually think I'm going to try to leave it to grow in water. Satin pothos here. It's a Florida beauty, a wandering dude, another begonia. This is a baby alocasia, sorry, a baby monstera here that hopefully will grow to it being big. Another philodendron Brazil. This is my actual Cebu blue pothos that I just got sent to me, a cutting. Sorry, y'all, my light down here is extremely low light throughout the entire first floor. This is philodendron moonlight. I usually keep all of my plants in the nursery pot until they like grow out the bottom, so I don't really mess with them. That's another pearl and jade up here, pothos. What else is in here, Shaw? There's a exotica, so that's another pothos here. You can see it. And I just have some neon pothos that's growing. I also have a Burl Max, and let me show y'all outside real quick. I have a lot more, and that would take more time to show y'all, but I'll show you my garden outside. Oh, this is probably, I'm not sure if many of you have seen this plant before. This is a pitcher plant. this is another carnivorous plant. And so these pictures actually hold enzymes that when the bugs fly in there, they catch the bugs in here. So they need about 4 hours of sunlight, and they need to be soggy. So they like the one that I showed you upstairs as well. They're like bog plants, so they like to be wet at all times. You water this with distilled water and rainwater. I have a pothos back there, another wandering dude, fiddle leaf, and then I can show y'all my garden. I don't know how to say it, the maca whatever earth for pests, but this is my this tomato plant going all the way over here, but these are my hot banana peppers. Should be able to pick those soon, but that's what I mean with companion planting. I have some basil, tricolor basil back here with marigolds. They like to grow with tomatoes to keep the pests away. But actually, you can see, these were not there the other day. If y'all see the tomatoes back here, I'm trying to get in so y'all can see down there. And this is cucumbers. I just sprinkle. This is my avocado tree. Somebody sent me an avocado tree, and it's a cold, hardy avocado. You can see it back there. And then I'm having some work done to my yard, y'all, so don't judge me. But this is a planter that I'm using. I'm probably going to plant some things in here, but I put one of the lawn or the weed protectors in the back of the planter so that it can have, the dirt can have somewhere to go. But this is, these are growing wild. This is squash. All these big broad leaves you see here is squash. And there's a flower that's on there. I'm trying to show y'all you can kind of see them growing. I have some lettuce some lettuce that's growing there. And I have sage on me. Jahmai, what kind of sage is this? Hold on, I'm gonna show you. Girl, I'll take a picture. This squash is taking over. I can't even see my other plants, but I have kale down here. The Tuscan kale is here. Regular kale is here. I have rosemary here. And I also have kohlrabi that's back inside of here with the squash. That's a huge overview, y'all. So just a quick overview of what it is that I have and what I'm growing. And I'm still learning, still enjoy it, but I love to come out here and just be out in the yard. I'll also show, we have wild mint that grows. If y'all have mint in your garden, you may want to contain it, but this grows wild for us. So this is our wild mint. It takes over everything. We have it back there too. And we also have Morning Glory that likes to choke things. So I try to pull that out of the way, but that's about it. That's my collection.
Thank you for showing that, Veronica. Like, my boyfriend's sitting over here like, I know my favorite plant now is the carnivorous ones, the ones that eat all the bugs. And so
yes.
we need to get 2 more of those now. A
strawberry too. So here, it's a red strawberry on it. Hold on. That happened overnight, so I need to repot these. So y'all.
Oh, they look so good.
I think I grew these for my daughter, and I'm gonna place them in a hanging basket, I think. But I don't know what's wrong with these though. So even like, just because we out here and we get into practice doesn't mean that we need to find certain things too. These 2 pepper plants, y'all, are struggling, and I don't know what to do with them. They get the same amount of light, but you can see how the other pepper plants are doing. This one is taking off. This hot banana pepper is taking off, but I'm trying to figure out why those other 2 peppers are having a hard time growing. But That's my everyday therapy, y'all. I go to therapy every day in my yard and in my house.
Exactly. No, and I agree with y'all. Planting for us has definitely taught us more like patience and just being sure about yourself. Like if you watered that plant, let it sit there and, you know, do its thing. It's going to grow regardless. So you keep coming back and watering it, you're going to drown the damn plant out. So I had to learn that. I had to learn patience and, you know, just to be in the moment and just watching my plants, just seeing them grow. That's been, you know, it's been really healing for me. And me being very cautious about the type of plants that I grow, growing more herbs that I can actually, you know, eat and ingest, growing more vegetables that I can actually eat and ingest. It's been a whole life change for me. So I'm excited, and I just want to thank you ladies again for sharing your story and intertwining it all into like therapy and healing. And I want everybody to know that we did record this session. So you'll hear more about, you know, if you missed anything, especially that basil thing with breast milk. Like, come on, Jahmai, that was a key note. If y'all missed any of that, it'll be posted on the Black to Earth YouTube channel. If anybody has a problem with their face being shown, let me know so I can edit it. However you found us, just like shoot me an email or shoot me a message and I'll edit it out. But thank you all for joining. And we definitely plan on hosting another one soon. And thank you again so much to Veronica and Jahmai.
Yeah, thank you for having us, Jahmai. I'm gonna be in your inbox, girl. I got some questions for you. I'm like, I got all the questions.
Yes, because I actually spent some time. I'm very familiar with Lehigh Valley, so let's connect. What? I was in Pennsylvania for 7 years for school, so like.
Oh yes, let's connect. I'll send you my number. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Guys, we have a question.
Sure.
Bean, go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully the leaf blower guy that's been doing it for 3 hours is not too loud. But I wanted to know when you all said that your plants were dying. I think I'm like going through that right now, and I was wondering if you found out, was there like a general thing that you were doing wrong that you found out when you like the first round or were you just? I know you're saying like partially it was like neglect, which I'm also like sometimes I'm just like I don't know what you want and I just neglect them, but I'm just wondering like. Because, like, I don't know, they don't seem to be, like, dead, but they don't seem happy either. And then I wanted to know what you do about soil because I think, like, finding soil that's, like, safe for you to eat and for you to use and stuff. I don't know. I just, like, it seems really hard to find. And like that's the right moisture and stuff because it's like I don't know, I'm looking at mine and like half of the soil is like turning white or something. I don't know. I was just wondering like there's some general. The only thing that's not dying is like this random avocado seed that I like put some toothpicks in. And I'm like so frustrated.
That's a hard one. That's a difficult one.
That is really difficult.
I don't know if I should leave it. Like I kind of want to show it to you, but I don't know if I should leave it in the water because the roots are like going crazy, or if I should put it in soil because it's like I don't want to stop it from doing what it's doing.
I can't really see the screen where you are. So if you want to send us a message, you can. And I think like for me, in terms of knowing what a plant needs and wants, I study it and study like if I have what I need at home to make sure that it thrives. And so light is a very big factor with the plants that you get. If you do not have bright light, high light, certain plants that you just can't have because you won't thrive in that environment. And so you have to figure out what are the environmental components of where you live and finding a plant that thrives in that environment versus trying to bring in anything like I know. So this fiddle leaf that I have on my back porch, when I came downstairs and showed y'all my plants in the downstairs, the low light, that thing will die in 2 days in there because it needs high light. So I know that about the plant. So I try to study my house when I first started to accumulate, study my house to know what it is that I would be able to have and let it thrive and be happy there. But in terms of like soil, it depends on the type of plant, but I try to do like a basic mix, and I'm actually trying to get my friends to do a session on IG about it. But you know, you can do some peat moss, perlite, a little bit of bark if you don't want soil, if you want soilless potting mix and things like that. But send me a message, girl, because I don't want to throw up all this information on you and then you end up like being overwhelmed. So you can send me a message if you want to.
Thank you. How do I contact you? Because I'm not on social media anymore.
You're welcome.
What'd you say?
Her social media is at Brown Skin Plant Mama.
Oh yeah, sorry, brown skin plant mama.
Is there something that's not social media that I can contact you with? Because I'm not on social media. Like,
Yeah, you can send me an email at brownskinplantmama@gmail.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, something I would also like to add about the soil is I actually started just going to my brother's house. My brother has like a garden in the back that he's growing, and I took some of his soil. Like I just took some of that and I brought it home. So if you know people that's growing in their backyards and stuff, take what they have, because obviously what they have is working, right? And then grow whatever transplants you can get from nurseries, in local nurseries or local farmers, like Veronica was saying.
Thank you.
Also, be careful with certain kinds of soil indoors. So, like, knowing the difference between garden and potting soil sounds very like simple, but like
That's important.
make or break why your plants aren't thriving indoors. Also, if you find that mildew is forming, for the most part, usually you could just scrape the top layer off. But in certain situations, depending on how long it's been sitting there, you may actually need to be careful of the fact that like a fungus is taking over your plant. And so you may need to repot with some fresh soil. And I would recommend figuring out, do you have windows that you can keep open? Is there a fan that you can turn on? So that's probably why it's forming, because it's not getting good enough circulation. And that can ultimately kill your plant.
Okay.
So try to get a fan or like something so that way the air is circulating well. Because whenever you see mildew forming or fungus forming, it's typically because it's too much moisture and it's not draining as well as it needs to.
Okay. I got a dehumidifier like online the other day, because it's like, it's not just that, there's like mold growing on the walls. So
okay, yeah. So yeah, definitely. That's a whole different thing. Get that checked out, definitely, because that's not
that's not safe.
Yeah, it's not safe. And so definitely check it out when
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of
Sorry,
course.
there's a lot of questions.
Is there any more questions? Or affirmations, or just gratitude? Is there any more? Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining, and check us out on YouTube. This will be posted up very soon.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks
Thanks so
Have a
much.
good day, guys.
Y'all take care.